Hi, well, welcome to Start the Day, Start the Week from Felixstowe. My name's Chris, and today we've been having a political day because we've been following events in the East Suffolk Council Election. It's been really interesting. It's come up with some really unusual and unexpected results. It's come up with quite a lot of expected results as well, but the whole complexion of East Suffolk Council is changing literally overnight, and we'll see what happens from there. One of the people who was at the count today was a gentleman called Mark Jones, who was standing in two of the elections for the Communist Party. This is not anything to do with Mr. Putin or the Chinese government. This is the proper Communist Party, which stands for workers' rights. And I had a chat with him after the election was complete. Mark, you went up to the count today. Tell me how it all went.
Well, I got up there around about just after 11 o'clock, and the hall was really busy. Huge amount of candidates and supporters up there, obviously with our election agents. And we had everyone. The Conservatives were there en masse, Labour, the Lib Dems, and the Greens, of course, and a small representation from the Communist Party of Britain, namely myself and my party agent, political agent. So it was very interesting. Of course, you bump into people that you know and have known for a number of years in social and political circles of all sorts of denominations. Peter Aldous, the MP for Lowestoft, was up there as well, offering candidate support for Conservatives. So, it was very, very good atmosphere, but I think that atmosphere soon turned to joy on one side of the room and absolute despair on the other.
So despair, the Tory party started to look really unhappy, did they?
I think it was clear that with the Greens and the Lib Dems, Greens particularly, who had campaigned vociferously in their target district wards, the wards they targeted, it was clear that they did some very good work on the ground. To a lesser extent, I guess, the Lib Dems. Labour managed to sort of turn up in a few places, and the Conservatives, the Tories, really took a bit of a beating on overall. And I don't know the full extent, I don't know the final results, but certainly in Felixstowe, I think we've only got now, all the Tory councillors have been ousted on the district council, apart from one.
Mark Jepson. The numbers, just so that you know, the Greens got 16, the Tories got 15, Labour got 12, the Lib Dems got 11, and there's one single lonely independent.
I haven't followed any of the media, only first thing this morning with some of the early declarations. But what today was about, or rather yesterday's vote election and the results that have been coming in today, was a rebuttal of the Tories, a sort of, get the Tories out for the most part. It was a protest vote because what you're seeing with the other political parties and whichever colour of conservatism gets elected in Britain these days, I mean, the establishment parties of the Tories, the Labour, Lib Dems and the Greens effectively will only ever offer a few breadcrumbs from the table for us. And as soon as they get into a position of power and influence, those breadcrumbs are thrown to the floor, from the table onto the floor, for the working class to fight over. And it really matters little who is in power these days. The politics, there's nothing to distinguish between any of the parties, apart from true socialist parties like the Communist Party of Britain, which have the working class at heart and wealth distribution, distribution of wealth at its core.
Okay, one of the things I want to ask you about was the turnout. I thought the overall turnout was quite low, I thought, at 34%. But one of the things that hit me in the face was the Western Felixstowe turnout, which was about 57%.
Yeah, and again, I think that, when the elections were back in, 2019, I stood then as a Labour Party candidate in Western Felixstowe, and obviously they didn't get in apart from one Labour candidate who was re-elected today as well. The turnout is where they're campaigning, and where targeted seats were in evidence, such as the Greens especially, they were getting over 40% turnout in the seats where they were winning. The district wards they were standing in, the turnout was over 40, sometimes 45, 46%. So, they've done some good groundwork. But again, this is against a backdrop of real hatred and disdain for Tory policies, because the Tories over the past, since
13 years so far.
13 years now, have basically thumbed their noses at every single corner of society. And they haven't got anyone on their side at the moment. There's no one really fighting for them apart from the very few at the 1% at the top, and even there, they're not getting as much backing as they perhaps would have expected 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Okay. One of the things I want to ask you about is where do we go with the council? Because the interesting thing about the council election, with that result, with the Greens, the Tories, Labour, Lib Dems, all getting in the same kind of range of numbers between 16 seats and 11 seats. How do you see this panning out in the council? What alliances are going to be made? I read a piece from a Tory councillor. I don't think he's a councillor, maybe not anymore, I'm not sure. But I read a piece from a Tory councillor that said it'll be the Tories and the Greens. Is that what's going to happen?
They're all cut from the same cloth. All those four parties are cut from the same cloth at the end of the day. And it's going to make very little difference who sidles with who gets into bed with who. And for the ordinary people, ordinary working class people in East Suffolk, very little is going to change for them. Very little indeed, because at the end of the day, what has happened over many, many decades is underfunding of district councils, town, district, and of course county councils. Austerity has bitten down very, very hard on these councils, and there is very little money to distribute and help people. And so it matters not what colour rules the roost in whichever council. They're all hamstrung, completely hamstrung by Westminster and the few breadcrumbs that get tossed out by Westminster.
Okay, Mark, I'm going to let you go home to your lady wife and a good cup of tea and say thank you so much for keeping us in touch with what's been happening at Lowestoft, and thank you for having this chat now. Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to those that came out to vote, to take part in democracy, and especially those who voted communist. And some of those would have voted communist for the first time. We had two candidates standing in Felixstowe, myself and Hagar, and we're grateful for your vote. We thank you for your vote.
We'll be back with Felixstowe Town Council election results. That'll be today, Friday. and we'll be back with Suffolk County Council's results as well, and they should be out on Tuesday. We'll give you those when we get them. Okay, thanks for listening, and if you've got questions, viewpoints or contributions to make, I'd love to hear from you. Take care now.